Kayla, Neknamalita, and this is my channel, The Midnight Librarian. So every summer, my partner, his dad, and I go camping. And I think so far, the last 2 years maybe that I've been doing BookTube, I vlogged it. This is the first time I'm bringing a camera with me. So if I'm a little cockeyed, bear with me. You're set up on a picnic table. They're not always properly leveled, let alone like on a level ground. So bear with me. But this is also the reason why I am probably as red as I am. I actually don't think I've gotten sunburnt yet, but I can't quite tell what colors are coming through currently. This is also our second day here, first full day, second day here. So far it's really enjoyable. It's not the campsite that we typically have because it filled up so quickly, but it's still a campsite, and actually I really enjoy this one so far because we're right on the lake, which my partner also loves since he has a boat and likes to just keep an eye on it. And in the campground that we're usually at, we don't always get that option, so this is pretty nice. And also because we're close to the water, my partner's father is also very happy because we go catfishing just at sunset, and this way we can all eat dinner together, because typically at other campsites it's like a 10-minute walk to the lake to get set up for it. It was always like an argument of like eating dinner and like sitting down and actually eating dinner, because it was like he was so eager to go fishing, and now it seems to have this seems to have solved that issue. So it's also why I have like crazy hair right now that's half fried and half wet, because we've been swimming. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about like what books I brought. I did finish a couple of books already, and so I wanted to talk about it. I did bring 4 books with me. That's not including any audiobooks. But my current read is Healer of the Water Monster by Brian Young. This is a Dene author, a Dene storyteller, and we are getting a Dene perspective, or Navajo. Basically, we are following Nathan, who is spending the summer, or 2 full months, I believe it's summer, with his grandmother Nali, who lives on the Navajo reservation in a small trailer in the desert that has no electricity and no running water. He knows he's in for a boring summer, but he'd rather be doing this than spending time with his dad's new girlfriend. So while he's out, he ends up living with his Nali for the summer. His Uncle Jet makes a surprise appearance, and Nathan ends up, alright, let me wait for this car. But yeah, he ends up going out into the desert and getting lost, and while he's lost, he ends up helping out, or he ends up getting helped out by a water monster, which is of Dene stories. It's a holy being, and Nathan promises to help the water monster because something's wrong with the water monster. I am just about halfway through. I'm enjoying it. There are some issues that I'm having, particularly with repetitiveness, as well as there's some over dramatic, in my mind, there's some over dramatic dramatization of some things. I don't think it needs to be as dramatic as it is. There's also just things like, I think this is this a children's book, or like, I think this is supposed to be like middle grade. I'm not entirely sure, but it reads like a middle grade because Nathan's not in high school yet, so I'm assuming that it's like supposed to read as a middle grade, and it very much feels like an adult trying to write as a middle schooler, and it's not clicking for me. I am enjoying some of the adventures Nathan is going on. It's so far having to deal with some pretty heavy topics in terms of PTSD, alcoholism, as well as, kind of like having confidence in yourself. And I'm enjoying the characters that Nathan is ultimately meeting in here, other holy beings, as well as, it's great. That part I'm really enjoying. It's just kind of like the writing style itself that I'm having trouble with, in terms of some of the repetitive natures and the over dramatized reactions. The other one that I am currently listening to actually is Fresh Banalities by Jessica Hernandez. This I have started before. I had another TBR. It is currently on my July TBR, so is Healer of the Water Monster. So I've started this before. I think I only got 35 pages into it because I was not only reading it, I was listening to it as well. Now I'm just listening to it. And I've been slowly going to it because we don't have, I'm out camping, right? So I can only listen for so long before, and we're here for 5 days, so I can only listen to so much before my battery starts dying. So I'm hoping to be able to get at least another hour into it before we leave on Friday, so that I can listen to the rest of it, which should be about 2 hours on our drive back home, which will take about 2 hours. So Fresh Banana Leaves is Indigenous science and Indigenous environmental science. Indigenous knowledge within environmental science and how to utilize that. Sorry, our neighbors have a dog off leash. And our dog is on leash, and I'm sure she's friendly, but I don't know how my dog's gonna react. And that's always my biggest issue, is that like everyone's like, oh, like she's nice, or our dog's nice. It's like, great, I don't know if mine is, so please keep your animals on leash. I don't care if they're friendly. I don't know if my dog is friendly. Like, he's been socialized to a sense, but he almost gets overly excited when talking or when other animals are involved. So I think my partner's back, so I may have to stop this early. Sorry about that. I took a swimming break, and the wind has picked up. The sun has gone behind some clouds, so apologies for any changes. But I was talking about Jessica Hernandez, Fresh Banana Leaves. So like I said, I started this a couple months ago because it was on another TBR, and it's on my July TBR. It's a nonfiction. Jessica Hernandez is Indigenous of a couple of places, I believe. I can't remember off the top of my head. But basically, she's talking about ecology and conservation and the sciences in terms of an Indigenous lens, and what's wrong with Western science and how it's not going to help conservation issues, or help with conservation or any ecological systems. So I am so far really enjoying it. I am learning a lot from it, because I wasn't aware of the colonial systems in Mexico or South America, because our education system here in the United States is fantastic. But also, so it's good to know how it differs from being Indigenous in the United States versus Canada versus, yeah. There we have cars going past, semis going past, and a boat going past, which happens to be my partner and his dad. So, but yeah, that's what I'm currently listening to. I had to stop a couple months ago when I was originally reading this, because I was physically reading it as well as audio, listening to it through audio, through Libro FM, because it was just not so much stressing me out. It just wasn't helping my anxiety at work at all. So it was just something I had to put down. Not that I wasn't interested at all. I just wasn't a good time. I also have 3 other books here with me, physical books. So I'm hoping that if I can get done with Healer of the Water Monster by Brian Young, I can get on with these. One of these for sure I've talked about before. and that is Hide by Kirsten White. This is the one that I had wanted to read for Summerween, which actually doesn't start until Friday, which is the day I get back from camping. So I actually had wanted to read this while camping because I think it would be good. It'd just be a fun horror, considering it has nothing to do with the woods or anything. It's about an amusement park, from what I understand. And it's like a high stakes hide and seek, supposedly, but I also was told, I remember a couple of booktubers saying, like, that's not exactly what it's about, so I'm trying to adjust my expectations of this book. So yeah, and so I think it would count. I can't remember off the top of my head what the prompts were for Summerween this round. I thought one of them was like read something with Halloween colors, red and yellow and black, with a little bit of orange down here. I guess yellow and black for sure is what I think of in terms of Halloween colors. So yeah, so I'm hoping to get to this next, I believe, after Healer of the Water Monster, but we'll see. One thing, I had almost brought a couple others with me in the horror realm. I've had a couple, like another horror, and then I kept going back and forth between a thriller and like one about a serial killer, and my partner made a valid point saying like that I'm already kind of anxious when I go camping, particularly the first night, because it's an unfamiliar place, it's an unfamiliar noises, and ultimately like I am really easy to wake up. I woke up several times last night because I heard someone rooting around in our campsite. It was thankfully my partner's dad, who couldn't sleep, so he kept like adjusting things and cleaning things, which I get, but it was like it woke me up every time. So and just little things like that. So he's like, do you really want to bring a book about a serial killer or any other horror when you already have a hard time with that? And it's like, okay, that's fair. So the other one I decided to bring was American Hippo by Sarah Galey. I have read Sarah Galey before, went earlier this year, called When We Were Magic. I didn't quite enjoy that particular story, but I enjoyed her Sarah Galey's writing style. So my coworker brought in some of her own books to work to do like a mini book exchange. So they have books on a shelf that basically is up for grabs, and we can borrow them, return them, or we can just keep them because they ultimately have like more than one copy. That's why they're comfortable with putting this on essentially a free shelf. And I saw this one, and I have been interested in this for a while, as well as Sarah Galey's backworks, so that's what I wanted to do. This one, I believe, has to do, it's from, I don't recall what this one's about, and I'm not seeing a synopsis, but from what I understand, basically someone had this idea of to save, or like to combat world hunger, that we should bring hippos to the United States and essentially raise them in terms of cattle, like cows or chickens or whatever, like for meat, because they're so big. And someone, I believe Sarah Galey, went with this idea, and basically this is the Western, but instead of cow ranches, it's hippo ranches. So I'm very curious about this. I've heard it's very weird. My coworker thinks that I would definitely like it because it's one of those ones where it's just like something it's historical, but there's like a weird twist to it. So I'm excited to get to this. Unfortunately, this was not on my July TBR, so I'm branching off a little bit, but we'll see ultimately. And the third one, I wanted something sci-fi, but nothing like spooky or horror-y in any way, because I was really heavily looking at Dead Silence and was like, no, I shouldn't do that. But because I'm essentially sleeping under the stars, I really wanted something sci-fi-y. And so I thought it would be a good opportunity to pick The Galaxy and The Ground Within by Becky Chambers. This is the fourth and final book in the Wayward series. The Wayward? What is this called? What is this? You okay? My dad just hacked. So don't hack on me. The Wayfarer series. Sorry, not Wayward. Wayfarer series. I don't know what this is about. But essentially the series itself is, we're following different people throughout each book. The first book in particular, we're following Rosemary Harper, who is leaving her home on Mars to join the Wayfarer, which is a ship that is commissioned to essentially create shortcuts within space to be able to travel quicker. And the crew gets commissioned to do this in near a planet that was in the past hostile and has not had any of these shortcuts in space around it, and the space around this planet is very unstable. So, but they're getting a high price to do the job, and it's also going to take a long time to get there because no one else has done this before within their system. So we get to learn about all the characters along the way. Becky Chambers made me feel for every single character, made me connect with every single character. Every one of them I was like, do not kill off. I will be so upset. And the second and third one's kind of like the events after, like what ends up happening. We followed two different people in the second book, as well as a whole another group of people in the third book, and we briefly meet all of them within the first book. So I'm not sure what this one exactly is about. I know that so far the first one I absolutely loved, second one was alright, and the third one has been my least favorite. So I'm interested to see how I feel about this fourth one. And that's pretty much it. I have like a slew of audiobooks, but like I said, because what are you chewing on? Because I have no place to really charge my phone. I am being very cautious about how much I'm listening to an audiobook here, and don't feel like I would get any other audiobook done. So yeah, that's my time here so far with books.
Summertime, summertime, love's in its prime. Summertime, summertime, everything's just fine. But autumn came, turned love into shame. And love's a game, no one's to blame. Who are you counting on? Who are you leaning on? When the cold winds blow strong, who are you counting on? Wintertime, wintertime, blood in the snow. Wintertime, wintertime, release the need to know. Christmas Eve, Adam and Eve.
Back again, looking a little rougher. It is day three of our camping trip. It's our second full day, and it's not as hot today as it has been. So like, I think the first day we got here on Monday, it was like over 100 degrees, and we're pretty sure it was like 105. We're not exactly sure because the thermometer my partner's dad brought wasn't quite reading it quite right. Like, we didn't think that it was really working. My partner and his dad went fishing again, so I figured this would be a good opportunity to update you on my reading. So I finished Healer of the Water Monster by Brian Young. I'm not sure what I'm going to rate this just yet, but I did enjoy it. It had a lot of elements to it which I think worked in its favor as well as didn't. So it has some content warnings in terms of PTSD. I think I talked about this before, as well as alcohol abuse. We are following Nathan, who is, I think, 10 or 11, and we know that he is not the most popular kid in school. He gets picked on, he gets bullied, but he does have friends. Then he's a little attached to his cell phone and wanting to play video games. He goes to his grandmother's house on Navajo reservation in the desert over the summer because he ultimately doesn't want to hang out with his dad and his dad's girlfriend in Vegas. And his mom is actually a reporter, writer type person who is covering a water rights protest, which I'm assuming is Standing Rock, but it never outright says it. So Nathan, while he's staying with his grandmother Nali, it ends up getting lost in the desert to the point where he's freaked out. He ends up getting saved by a water monster, and in turn promises to help the water monster because it turns out the water monster is sick. And there's a lot of back and forth like that of just like, which I really enjoyed because there is this like, it's give and take, right? It's a give and take of life. It's reciprocity. Oh my god, I never know how to say this word. And for some reason, it's giving something back if you want giving something back. And there's a lot of that in here. I think for me though, there was almost too much going on. I get what it was trying to do, but there were just moments where I felt like it was kind of meandering, or like it didn't quite need to be this long. But ultimately did really enjoy it. It really made me, like, for instance, want to learn a language, particularly my own language. So the Yurok language, I guess. And I say I guess because it's hard sometimes because a lot of us are mixed. So I'm a Yurok tribal member, but I grew up on the Hippo reservation. A lot of my family is Karuk. So what do you do in that instance? My mom is under the interpretation that because we're Yurok enrolled, we are therefore Yurok and we should know our language in Yurok. However, when it comes to some of the ceremonies and some of the practices, even though they can be very similar, tribes are not monolithic. So even though like the Yurok have a flower dance ceremony, which is a coming of age ceremony for young girls coming into womanhood, Hoopa has the same ceremony. But they have different stories to go with it. They have different reasons why we do certain things. It also just ends up depending on how the family wants to run it, as well as the medicine woman. So yeah, there's just different aspects of it. So it's really hard for me to, like, yes, I would love to learn the Yurok language. I would love to learn more than one of my indigenous languages, but it's also, I also want to learn the just like the non-white names of some of the stuff around here. So like, for instance, we are camping at Ruth Lake, which I believe is an artificially made man-made lake from the Van Dusen River. Pretty sure Van Dusen is actually just one of the major white families that moved in here. So I want to know what this river was called beforehand, and like I would love to start using words of like the tribes of the area. So like Yurok wouldn't be here. I'm not sure who would, but I want to look that up as soon as I get home and get within service of just like whose land, who was originally on this land. Sorry, my dog is freaking out because another dog walked by. Like I said, I think he's actually really friendly with other dogs. He just gets overly excited because it's another dog, and the only other dog that he is like aware of that exists is his older sister, who's at home. And of course this other dog is not on leash. So it's just kind of like, I don't know the temperament of that dog, and I don't know how my dog would react necessarily. So But yeah, anyway, it just like this whole book just kind of wanted me to learn the language. And even if it's just like a little bit of just like, because I already do Ayikwi, Neknamalita. And I try to do that in a lot of aspects of my life, but to do it more so, not only with a hello, how are you, but like, or hello, my name is Melita, but also just other aspects of being able to call a river that I'm fairly familiar with its the name that the original people of the area gave it, not the colonized name of it. So that's, I don't know, that was fantastic. I love the characters in here, the different holy beings that helped Nathan on his quest. And yeah, and ultimately the emotion that Nathan ended up feeling and like all the outcomes. I think that was part of my issue though, was that there were some elements in here that I feel like weren't tied up very well, and sometimes they aren't, right? But like, for instance, at one point Nathan's uncle Jet, who is having these having PTSD and is abusing alcohol, like calls Nathan a sissy, says don't be a sissy, like man up, and that's never addressed as toxic masculinity. So just the stuff like little things like that I'm sure like other people will go, oh, there's no big deal in that. I'm like, there is though, because it wasn't addressed as wrong or harmful. How are others who were going to read this, who never heard of it being harmful, gonna know? So that was one thing I had with this, as well as like there was just some meandering portions, as well as at one point, well, not throughout the whole book, basically Nathan is mad at his dad because he had invited his girlfriend to what was supposed to be their boys only trip to Las Vegas. In my mind, it doesn't make sense to me to bring kids to Las Vegas, but okay, if that's what you want to do for vacation, sure. But I also don't see the fun in Las Vegas, I guess. Not that I've ever been, I'm just saying. So you do you. But Nathan was mad that his dad had invited Leandra, and so that's one of the reasons why Nathan decided to visit his grandma instead. This may be cut out because ultimately I do want to do a full review of this book, but ultimately what ended up irritating me was that the whole time he was mad at his dad because he was bringing Leandra. Nathan felt like his dad never really wanted to hang out with him. He wanted to hang out with his new girlfriend. He doesn't pay enough attention to him. And that's never really addressed. It just happens to be that towards the end of the book, Nathan's dad starts giving him more attention, but it's never brought up between Nathan and his dad that Nathan feels this way about Leandra. That Nathan didn't like the fact that his dad invited Leandra to what was supposed to be their boys' only trip. Hence why Nathan was mad at him. It was never addressed that Nathan was mad at his dad to his dad, or even to Nali. So that bugged me. So just things like that, I think, but ultimately really enjoyed this book. I think next I am going to start reading Hide by Kirsten White. Like I said, this was for Summerween, but Summerween doesn't start for a couple more days, so I'm just going to get a head start on it. It's not a very long book at all. I think it's only just over 200 pages. It's 240 pages, so yeah, not that long at all, but like physical books have been taking me forever to get through. So we'll just see. Sorry, family just walked by and I'm really embarrassed now. So actually what I thought would be fun, since the family left, it's a little bit later, it's literally like a minute later, was to give you like a brief tour of our campsite, if that sounds at all interesting. Yeah. So like I said, we're at Ruth Lake, and there are multiple campsites around Ruth Lake. We typically stay at Ruth Rec, but that has gotten overpopulated or like full really quickly. And this year in particular, we weren't able to get a reservation in time. So we are at a different campsite. I'm not going to even bother mentioning the location outside of Ruth Lake because we're actually kind of enjoying it for the most part, and it's quieter, so yeah. Okay, but let me show you the campsite. Don't mind the mess though, because we are several days in, so my car, my partner, and my tent that we're hoping to upgrade by next year. Like, this is fine, but we do, when we use camp stuff, we really, or use anything really, we really try to use it to its full ability. And so not only has this gone camping with us for several years now, but it also goes out to deer camp with my partner every year. So it's starting to get worn down a bit. So we're thinking about upgrading it next year, by next year. So, but so far it's been a helpful thing. And I know that a lot of people are like, oh, but that's a huge tent or whatever. But it works for us. We do have like an air mattress in it that fits the both of us, that also may be upgraded by next year, but it also fits our crate for this little monster here who is crate trained, and the only way he'll not get up on the air mattress is if we crate him. So that, and the crate is his safe space, and ultimately he's in a new environment too, with new noises and everything happening around him, so it's just a quiet place for him to be able to go to. Since I'm there, that's where I was just sitting. That hammock here is where my partner's dad is sleeping. This is his first time doing it like this for the first time. He's really enjoying it. We're actually very interested in this hammock now. He says it's really comfortable. He basically has like a small air mattress in there and a sleeping bag to keep him nice and warm. It even has like a mosquito netting to zip into. So yeah, now of course my partner wants one. So, and it even has like a rain fly. So I think that looks really cool. I'm not sure about sleeping in it all night, but my partner is very intrigued. So back beyond the hammock is our neighbors, who actually just left this morning. A lot of people end up, you would think that like they're not like gone, but a lot of people end up like reserving their campsites all summer and just parking a trailer in their boats and just come up for the weekends, which is like goals for my partner and I, but like at the time is like really spendy. So good on them. We're not at that level yet. So it's our ice chests, as well as camp gear, fishing gear, a table, our picnic table that is covered in junk, so let's just bypass that. But basically it's where we cook everything with our camp stove, our seasonings. We have a fillet table because my partner and his dad like to go fishing, and every year, particularly with this lake, there's the gorgeous lake, this is only part of it, but like every year we catfish out of here actually, and we try to have at least one night of a fish fry. So usually it's by the third night, which would technically be tonight, but sometimes we'll push it to the fourth night just because of the lack of fish or something. And in this case, yeah, it's the lack of fish. We just need like a couple more fish to make it a full meal, so that's what we're hoping for. It's the grill that my partner's been cooking on, and then the fire pit that we will hopefully use at some point. It's supposed to get colder within the next couple nights. So there's essentially the camp. And then down here we have access to the lake. It's kind of a steep access, but it's also just a gorgeous view. So yeah, let me see if I can't get closer. There we go. So yeah, there's a little beach down here, which my partner enjoys because he parks his boat down here. And then we have access to it as well. So yeah, I think the one issue that we're having particularly with this site is the people, in all honesty. So there's etiquettes, I feel like, that fishermen know, that campers know, and you can kind of tell when someone's being an inconsiderate camper. So for instance, I get that not everyone is going to have this gorgeous lakeside access at this campground. There are multiple campsites along this lake that have the lake access, but there's also campsites further that way that aren't on the lake. So how do they access the lake? I think ultimately at Ruth Rec there's like a public area where people just kind of go. Not everyone's gonna at like Ruth Rec. There is no specific campsite with unless you there's like a row of specific campsites that have lake access that are right on the beach, but then there's another, but the rest of the campsites aren't directly on the beach. You have to pay extra for those, for the ones that are. And basically that whole thing is like the rest of the beach is public use. So in terms of if you pay for a campsite, you get the use of it. And then there's a day use area where if you're only coming up for the day and you just want to swim, then you can pay for that and that's your area. So at this campsite it's a little different because we have this access, and then there's like a couple, 5 or so campsites that don't have direct access. Where do they go? We have yet to figure that out because so far, for some reason, there's been a couple sites that have come through our campsite to use our access. And we don't know if it's because it's this particular channelway between our campsite and our neighbors that people think, oh, that must be it, which is very aggravating for my partner because his boat and stuff is down there. So he gets very like hyper aware when anyone's down there, particularly when they're fishing. We've already had a family get hung up on his boat motor, and just start yanking the hell out of their fishing line trying to break it off, which can ultimately like damage the motor. And if he wasn't aware of that, he could start the motor, it could get wrapped up in the prop and completely like fuck up his motor. So we're pretty sure there's another access like down the road further, but ultimately that's one of the issues that we're having trouble with, is like, why are these families coming through our campsite to use this particular spot? It's not that big of a spot at all. There is another campsite behind us or next to us that has actually a bigger beach and makes more sense to us for people to get through because there's no one there. But like the family that had been using our access point kept going, oh, sorry, we keep going through your camp. And it's like, we even mentioned going, you know, there's another beach like further down, right? And they're like, oh yeah. So so we don't know if it's just us that thinks it's rude to go through someone else's camp to be able to access the water point, but it's rude. We also kind of figure that they weren't experienced campers because of that. Also because like at one point I heard we ended up hearing one of them go like, oh, don't do that, you'll get dirty. And it's like, that's camping. Like, I get there's campers here and whatnot, and there's showers here, but it's still like camping, you're gonna get dirty. I've been wearing the same pair of clothes like all week so far. So yeah, I'm gonna have to scrub like hell when I get home, but I mean, I'm with my partner and his dad. I still put on deodorant. I'm pretty sure I have a layer and layers of suntan lotion and bug repellent, so, and grime and lake water. So, but yeah, the other issue we're having here is the lack of leashes on dogs. So our neighbor had a pit bull who was never on a leash, and they were constantly having to call her back over to the camp because she kept trying to come over to our camp. There is a camper next to the house who have a German Shepherd that they don't always have on leash. that is constantly trying to come over here as well. And then the camp hosts themselves have 2 small toy dogs that are never on leash either, that are never listening. So it's one thing if your dog listens to you, if they're not on leash. But I've literally had the camp host yelling for 5 minutes for her dog to get in the house or come over here, and have it completely ignore her. So to me, that's not a well-trained animal. That should be off leash. Only for the camp host to be posting signs everywhere saying that dogs must be on leashes at all times. Make that make sense.
New Year's Eve, New Year's Eve, wear it on your sleeve. Who are you counting on? Who are you leaning on? When the cold winds blow strong, who are you leaning on? Low down valley, low down values, easy come, easy go. Spring will come with squirrels on the run. Lots of fun, sit in the sun. Another one will surely come. Who are you counting on? Who are you leaning on? When the cold winds blow strong, with all that's going on.
I am a little worse for wear right now because it is our last and final day here at camp, and this is a terrible angle, but just wanted to update you. Yes, this is the last day of camp. Like we have to move out here in like it's 9:30, an hour and a half. So my partner and his dad are getting the boat ready, packing up the boat. I am supposed to be cleaning up here, but I figured I might as well get dressed because I've been wearing PJs until like 5 minutes ago. We were debating on staying another night. Unfortunately, though, there is someone moving into the site today, so we just wanted to stay one more night, and they said that they could possibly look for another site if we wanted to stay another night, but didn't seem really worthwhile to pack up, move to a new site, only have to pack up again the next day. So we're just gonna go home today. So it is the 15th. It is the start of Summerween. I did get a bit of a head start on Hide by Kirsten White. I got about 80 pages in, and I'm liking it so far. In a way, so it's definitely giving like kind of creepy. For some reason, it's giving me like the Quiet Place vibes right now in terms of like the monsters that could potentially be seeking all these people. But I'm not entirely sure because it's like unknown. That's what my mind is going to, which makes me glad I didn't read too far into it last night, because that made it definitely creepier because of the unknown aspect. I thought it would be easier because it's set in like an abandoned carnival or amusement park, and I'm in the woods. So I thought like it wouldn't have much of a correlation, but these woods this carnival amusement park is overgrown. So there's like these nature-y elements, and I'm like, crap. So yeah, it's definitely creepy. I did, like I said, read 80 pages into it, but I'm glad that like I didn't read as much as I had originally wanted to before our last night, because I'm sure that would have made sleeping a lot harder. Not that it was very hard, but it's like it's all about like noises so far. So, which I'm already pretty well aware of in terms of when it comes to camping, because it's unfamiliar noises to me when I'm sleeping. So any little noise wakes me up, and I tend to assume like the worst in terms of it's a bear, it's a cougar, it's somebody in our space. So, and I've had my hair in like braids for a couple days now, and so now it's like poofy and in need of a shower. So yeah, that's my update. I'm going to finish getting ready and then start packing up. Hopefully while I'm packing up I can listen to a bit more of Fresh Banana Leaves by Jessica Hernandez. That way for my 2-hour drive home I'll hopefully be able to finish it. So that's my goal.